when you watch the New Orleans Saints, they do as good a job as anybody of moving the pocket for Drew Brees and changing the launch points. And, okay, this time we'll set him up behind the guard. This time we set him up behind the tackle. Kyler Murray's going to need that in the NFL. He's going to need a coach that understands changing those launch points. Anthony Lynn is a guy that was with Tyrod Taylor at some point. He was with Greg Roman, who obviously has a background with Colin Kaepernick, changing the launch points, using a quarterback's legs that we've seen become such a big part of the NFL. So I like those two places.
That was Dan Orlovsky, who, interesting enough, we'll hear from next segment. We'll get his thoughts on Kareem Hunt. So back-to-back Dan Orlovsky cuts to open the segment. Joining us now, RJ Young. RJ, you've been on the Kyler talk for a while. It's interesting, and I said this earlier. I was watching MLB Network yesterday afternoon, getting ready for pitchers and catchers today. But their analyst basically said, yeah, we're disappointed, but it just seemed like he is a better, short-term, at least in the short run, is going to make more money in football. And quite frankly, it just seems like he likes football better.
I'm beginning to wonder who's paying attention here to what the A's are doing and what is in store for the NFL and how much of this is future casting. Because to hear people be down on what the A's are doing or how they look foolish is not to actually look at their options here. They're operating how I would operate, which is say, let it all play. You have the kids' rights. You have convinced the Major League Baseball organization at large that, hey, if we want to hand this guy a $50 million check, don't stop us. And they said, sure.
Yeah.
So they could get into a bidding war that the NFL cannot win and back this truck up of money and make Kyler say, hey, I really love playing football. And then they get to say, okay, cool. Well, when that doesn't work out, we'll still be here. And they look really, really good having supported the guy that they drafted and every step of the way believed in that dude and tried to let him do whatever is comfortable. And nobody seems to want to bring up that the NFL CBA expires next year and how that impacts the rookie wage scale and how that impacts anybody that's getting drafted in 2019 or 2020 and how much football they might or might not be allowed to play. So I think this is all really fascinating, but also to have a knee-jerk reaction about Kyler Murray saying, hey, I'm going to go to the combine and I'm going to commit to playing in the NFL is also not to look at what the next 2 years could have in store for both leagues.
Yeah. Well, I don't disagree with what you're saying on the A's, but I don't think that's something you do with the 9th pick. When you have the 9th pick, I think you need a guy who's there. Like I said, I thought last year it was kind of a mistake to let him go play football last year, but they rolled the dice and it came up snake eyes. They busted on it, but like I said, what they're doing, they obviously retained his rights. I think he got to keep a little bit of money from the A's actually.
Well, we still don't know how much he gets to keep because February 15th hasn't happened yet.
I'm sorry, now?
We still don't know how much he gets to keep because February 15th hasn't happened yet.
No, you think he's going to report?
I don't know. That's kind of my deal here, man. Like if the language is such that he walks through the door, collects a check, and then leaves, yeah, he probably reports because that's money that's on the table for him to grab.
At that point, he'd be in breach of contract.
According to who?
Well, I'm sure his contract doesn't say you can take our money and go play football.
Well, Patrick, we didn't think that his contract said anything about getting into the NFL draft either. I mean, look, nobody actually knows. That's my point.
He's paying the money back.
Well, I mean, I what I'm telling you is I don't actually know until the date passes like everybody else.
Sure.
And that's what I'm saying. We cannot rule out anything with this kid because he's been so quiet about a thing nobody has any roadmap for.
RJ, I know one time you and I both agreed that baseball was his future. When did you start thinking maybe football is his future?
When they handed him the Heisman Trophy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's it. I mean, it's Robert Griffin III had a really great quote way back when because he wasn't actually expecting to play in the NFL either. And he said, look, if the NFL comes knocking at your door, you're not going to say no. And when they hand you the Heisman Trophy, that's exactly what happens. The NFL says, hey, first round pick, come on down. And you could talk about the Baker Mayfield money. You could talk about perhaps, Cliff Kingsbury being able to sway Arizona into taking him number one, or wherever you think he's going to go. But the short-term deal that you brought up, Patrick, is what we're talking about. We're talking about how quickly he translates to playing a professional sport and being a star like he has been everywhere he's gone, and how much he loves baseball. And it's clear he doesn't really love baseball. He happens to be very, very good at it, and his upside is tremendous. And we all know that he is needed more by baseball than he needs football, or football needs him. But I still think that if you're thinking this through, and I have to think that everybody's thinking this through, you have to wonder aloud, do you want to actually walk into this not knowing what the CBA could be? So have a conversation with DeMaurice Smith, have a conversation with Richard Sherman, and get all your ducks in a row about this football thing, all while telling Billy Beane, hey, man, I appreciate the loyalty, and that's not going to be lost on me.
Now, R.J. Young joining us. Lots to talk about with him. Again, Kyler Murray is still a hot topic. OU basketball, not a hot topic.
Oof.
Man, look, it's one of the things, I say this all the time. I think if you're the athletic department, if you're Joe Castiglione, you want basketball to win. No one says, hey, let's have a program that stinks. But Lon Kruger is a respected coach. He runs a good program. They've obviously been competitive in very, very, very recent memory. It's just that the trajectory is not going real well right now. And with 2 years left on his contract after this, it does start to get to hard decision time a little bit.
I don't think so. I think that Lon's fine. I think we felt this way when they went 11-20 and then they came back and they were decent. I think the man has made a Final Four trip that nobody expected him to make. I think the man took Buddy Hield, who could not shoot the ball when he got to Oklahoma, couldn't shoot it at all, was Energizer Buddy, and turned him into one of the best players, not only in the NCAA, but a first-round pick. So he's had 2 first-round picks in, what, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah.
I mean,
3 years.
Yeah, I don't think you can fire that guy. I think he gets extended.
No.
I think he gets to do what he does, which is rebuild with 4-year players and continue to just make the program not absolutely suck. Because that's what you're looking at if you fire him. This isn't a high-profile job. This isn't the kind of job where you're looking at one of Krzyzewski's assistants and going, come on down. That's what you do for the football team. And honestly, I think that's why Lon Kruger was brought in the first place, because you'll remember nobody knew this dude from Adam, even though he'd been in coaching and been a head coach since the 80s, and he'd made trips to the Final Four himself, and he'd coached as a head coach in the NBA. So I think that everybody you should be lucky to have Lon Kruger as your guy. Yeah. You're not going to get in trouble, right, which is a big deal. You're going to be competitive in a league that is stupidly competitive, and you got 2 first-round picks and guys that are in the conversations for Player of the Year. Every couple of years he's going to cycle through. That's what he's going to be. That's okay. You know, I get wanting to be good, but this ain't Kansas, right? This is a football school.
And to be clear, I don't think that they do anything this year. Even if they don't make the tournament, I don't think you make a move this year. I just think next year becomes a tough year because he'll only have 2 years left on his contract. Then you have to decide, well, do we extend him? Because you can't have him coach with 1 year in his contract. You extend him at that point. That's where I'm saying I think it gets to be maybe a bit more hot seat situation.
Well, my question to you would be, number 1, who would you bring in? And number 2, why? Like, why? If he wants to continue coaching the team, why would you hesitate in extending him based on what? Based on this season? Based on the year before when he had Trae Young? Or based on him growing up these kids like Buddy Hield? I think it's a no-brainer to extend the dude when it's time to extend the dude if he wants to continue coaching the team.
I think, RJ, I think I'm right. No Sooner defensive guys are going to the combine.
Yeah, I made that video. Yeah.
You made that video?
Yeah, I made that video last night.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I missed it.
Sorry, Dave was at the Travis Scott concert.
Trying to get in.
Dave was banging a sicko mode. I can get it. Yeah.
We opened the show with that. I asked Dave how the Travis Scott concert was.
My man.
I haven't talked to you since Coach Stoops' decision. Were you shocked at all by that?
Oh, yeah, because I was making a joke about how I wanted it to happen and knew enough, or said I knew enough to know that it wasn't going to happen. Turned out I was wrong. Won't be the first time, wouldn't be the last. But, hey, I'm excited about it, if for no other reason than if it's even a smidge of the XFL I grew up with, that's awesome. You know, now I also want to see how much of Bob is a head coach and how much of Bob is a general manager, and I think we'll know a lot about that by the coordinators he decides to hire and how they round out their personnel. But if you're an Oklahoma fan, you want to see Bob Stoops coaching again, or you think that he's cheapening the legacy at Oklahoma, for which I tell those people to kick rocks. This is football.
Oh, yeah.
You know, And it seems like he's having a good time. And that's the most important thing for me right now is he doesn't need the money. You know, he was obviously bored and said as much. He's like, look, I want an extended vacation. Turns out I didn't want a vacation for the rest of my life. I want to go and I want to coach some football. And this seems like a nice little sweet spot for him with 3 kids at OU. He'd be coaching just down the road at Arlington, and it would be in the spring, right? So he could still be connected to the university where he still collects a check. I think, this is a win-win for everybody.
Oh, no doubt. Like I said, I think he's got that itch still, and this is a chance for him to kind of get into coaching. It's not as high pressure as if you would have went back to college or in the NFL. So, I mean, it is kind of the best of all worlds, I would imagine.
And just add to this, it is going to open up to speculation about when that next big head coaching opportunity comes in college football. Is Bob Stoops going to be looking? Because now we don't get to say that Bob Stoops, wasn't looking to coach. We don't get to say that anymore. We don't get to say that, hey, people used to come to Bob Stoops at Oklahoma all the time and say, hey, coach the Browns, coach the Dolphins, coach whoever sucks in the NFL. Now, could it be one of those things where, okay, we fired Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, or to many people's minds, we fired Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. Hey, Bob, how much would it take to get you up here? And now we really have to start to entertain those conversations, and I think that is going to be the thing that tweaks OU fans the most if he went from the XFL to coaching big-time college football in the next 3 to 5 years.
That would be interesting, no doubt. RJ, hey, great stuff. We'll chat with you on Thursday.
I appreciate you, fellas.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. RJ Young, OU Insider. Fight Me with RJ Young, Sunday mornings at 10.